Hi everyone, this is Ben Colby, Teen Librarian, with an advanced video to talk about how to make a web-style container. Here's an example of one that's done, and you get the basic idea. It's a cup that is connected to an outer shell by a bunch of small sticks. So let's talk about the concept of bridging. So I'm going to zoom in on this thing. All right, if we want to 3D print this, we would have to put some supports on the middle to hold up this spot on the blue sphere that is dipping down. Because we are building this thing in horizontal layers from the bottom up. So you're going to get to a point where there's something in the middle that's not supported on either side. That's going to be a problem for 3D printing. It's not going to be very stable. Let me compare that to this other thing over here. If we have a flat, a completely horizontal break, a jump across these two towers, that's going to print great. The 3D printer can bridge across two solid points in one layer just fine, without any support having to be printed underneath it. So just to go back to this for a second, this inside pattern prints on the printer with no supports. We just have the solid outside and the solid inside, and we stretch across. So let's start from scratch and make this happen. I'm going to start by creating the pattern. And actually, I'm going to make this one a little more chaotic than that other one that we just saw, just for variety. I just placed a box and I'm going to shrink it way down. I have to change my snap grid to, let's take it all the way down to 0.25. And so I want the height to be only 0.25 millimeters here. And that's because we use 0.25, well, I can plan to use 0.25 millimeter layers when I print. So this would be one line of plastic high. We want the stick to be 2 lines of plastic wide, which makes it much stronger than just one. And if you test these things out, you'll see that right away. One line of plastic is not really enough. So how wide is this? I have to get a better angle. 0.75, that's good. So with 0.25 lines of plastic, they actually end up a little wider on the bottom than you expect. So 0.75 is good. So I've got a stick that is 0.75 by 0.25 tall. And I'll just, depends how large I want to make this thing, but I'll just stretch it out to around the 25 area. And then I'm going to duplicate it with an Alt drag. Yep, and just try to get that lined up. Does it look like it's lined up? Sure. So I'm going to select both of these things. We're going to make the first layer of the web. I group them together. And I'm going to hold Alt, and I'm going to drag this arrow, which leaves the original shape there. So I turn that to 90 degrees, and I have a cross type of thing. Select both, group it, Alt and drag the arrow. So now I have 8. And let's just do one more. That's good enough for one layer. So let's build a few layers on top of this that look a little bit chaotic, that are not lined up perfectly. So I'm going to hold Alt and just pull that arrow up, and you can see now I have 2. Let's separate these by, I don't know how much, 3 millimeters each. So each layer of the web is 3 millimeters from the other one. I'm going to rotate it a little bit just so it looks like it's off. And I'm going to move it over so it's centered a little bit differently. So now that looks pretty crazy. And I'm just going to, let's group these together. And let's do an Alt and lift. So now I have 2 copies. And let's just do something similar to make it look a little crazy. I'll make sure the vertical spacing is good too. I need to go a little higher. Just trying to make that even. Okay, pretty close to even. So I'm going to rotate this so it's not lined up anymore, and I'm going to move it off to the side a little bit. Looking at something pretty crazy here. Let's do a couple more. Let's just do one more variation on this, and then we can just copy that. So I just grouped that. I'm going to do an Alt and Lift. Try to get it kind of lined up with the top and the bottom of the last one. And sure, let's rotate it randomly. Let's move it back up this way and in a little bit. That is pure chaos, and it's pretty good. So let's just take this one more time, group it all. This figure so far is 20 millimeters high. Oops, nope, I want to hit Alt and Lift. So that doubles it again. Try to just get that roughly even. And now once I group it, the total height is up to how much? 43 millimeters, a little less than 2 inches. Let's lift it one more time. Alt and Lift. So now it's okay if there's a little bit of overlap. So that's pretty good. And if I group these pieces, I'm all the way up to 86. So a little over between 3 and 4 inches. And that's good enough. So that's grouped, and so I'm just going to go ahead and move that back to the middle of my work plane, and let's work on the other parts of this. We're going to use the tube shape in a couple of different ways. So I'm just going to take one of these, and let's see, what's the outer thickness here? 57 to 60, or the outer width, I should say. So I want to create a tube where the inside is in that 50, well, less than 56. This is telling me radius of 10. I think we're just going to have to eyeball it. Let's try that. And so I'm just going to take that and put it on here. And it looks, I just want to make sure that there's nothing, hitting the F key to zoom. I want to make sure there are no sticks on the inside that are not making it all the way to the outside. Ooh. Just lift that all the way up. Yeah, it looks like there's nothing that's not long enough to reach the outside when I do this. So what I'm going to do, I got to lift this up, I'm going to make it into a hole. And you can see it's a little off center, which is actually fine. Yeah, before I cut this out, I just want to, let's do just one step of merging at the end. I'm going to Alt and drag this, change it back to a solid. This is going to be the outside shell shape. So I need the radius, the wall thickness here to be lower, like 1. Yep, much thinner. I could even go smaller than that. Say 0.5. Great, and I want to make sure this ends up on the inside there. So I'm going to shrink it down. Pretty good, yeah, pretty good. And then to line it up, what I'm going to do is select just this orange piece, and I'm going to hold the Shift key and select the whole. So now I have 2 shapes selected, and I'm going to use this Align key, click in the middle, click in the middle. So now I've aligned it in the X and Y direction. And what that means is that the shell shape is now perfectly centered with the cutout shape that goes around it. And I think when the time comes, that will look real nice. There's, let's see, so we want to make another shell on the inside, a cup shape. So let's see. Let's do that differently. I'm going to take a cylinder shape. It's going to be smaller than all of this. So let's see. This orange shape is 47 across. This is going to be less than 47. So let's stretch it out to 30s. That's fine. Around 30. And then up to about the right height. You can always shave off the top later. Or it doesn't even need to be even, really. Okay, that is very good. So we could just put that in the middle, except it would be a solid. We need to make sure we're cutting a hole out of it. So I'm going to Alt drag this one more time, make it a copy, changed it into a hole. I'm shrinking it down, lifting it off the ground. In fact, I could even stretch the height up a little bit. I just need to make sure that there's some solid left on the bottom. It doesn't go all the way down. So you can see, yeah, this is still a little bit lifted off the bottom. Great. So now I have two shapes that I guess I could align these two. I might as well. Align and align. Great. And so now these two shapes are selected, and I can just pop them right into the middle of my figure. Maybe I want it off center a little bit. I just have to make sure that the middle of the web is covered. I like that. And then in one awesome final step, we merge everything. And let's see what happens. Oh, it's got little nubs sticking out around the outside, which is fine. But let's just fix that. Is the middle okay? Yeah, the middle looks great. That's a nice container. And the web pattern is kind of random, which looks really cool. Let's fix this outside cutout real quick. The only thing we need to change is this shape will just have to be a little smaller. So I'm going to hold Shift and just slightly shrink it. Be a couple millimeters less, maybe. All right, and then I'm going to recenter it by selecting this, and then I hold the Shift key and select just that shell. So I have two shapes selected: align, center, center. And I think we've got it centered now. Let's try that final step again. And now we have a smooth outside. Oh, there's some stuff left on the outside here from the outside of the shell. That's okay. We could probably even print with that and it wouldn't make any difference. So we have created a web style cup with an inside and an outside that are held together by a web pattern.